Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Weekly Daily Podcast. Thanks for tuning in this week. We made it through Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I forgot to mention it in the last episode, but hope you had a good Thanksgiving. I had a good Thanksgiving. It's good to it's nice to have 4 days off. I'll tell you what. It is Sunday today. It is the fourth off day. Preparing for work to start again tomorrow. So that should be not fun, but that is life. I'll tell you what, in the last podcast, I think it was the last podcast when I was talking with Ethan, he said, don't you think Thanksgiving, maybe we did talk about Thanksgiving. He was saying, don't you think Thanksgiving is the best holiday? And I balked. I paused for a second. I wasn't quite sure. Now that I think about it, certainly Christmas is a good... Honestly, it is between Thanksgiving and Christmas. It's got to be. What are the other ones? But having 4 days off is great. And, man, it feels pretty necessary. As humans, I feel like you need 3-4 day weekends a couple times a year. Otherwise, longevity-wise, your job-wise, all this stuff, it's not manageable if you're just 2-day weekend and that's it. Because usually, a lot of times you're completing all the things that you weren't able to do during the week over the weekend. So it's a busy weekend of catching up. But when you have 4 days, you're able to catch up, but also use a couple days to just genuinely rest. And I feel rejuvenated. I feel good. Last week or so, I've started to feel better, a little bit more energy. I've been running more. You guys know the whole health journey I've been going on, but it feels good to feel good. I'll tell you guys about my Thanksgiving. I went up to Fort Collins. My brother lives up there. Unfortunately, him and my sister-in-law were sick. I didn't really get to see them. We were all going to. I went up there. We were going to, have Thanksgiving up there, but we all signed up to do the Fort Collins 4-miler turkey trot, whatever it's called. And unfortunately, him and his wife weren't able to do it because they were sick. But had a couple other friends that fortunately took me in. They took me under their wing. Appreciate you guys. If you're listening, I don't think they listen, but yeah, fortunately was able to go hang out with them. They were also doing the race, so I met them early in the morning and did the 4-mile race. Feels good. I know it's like a cliche thing, and it's a very common thing, but it does feel nice to exercise. It feels nice just in general to get exercise done, like a run, very early in the morning, so the rest of your day is taken care of. But especially over Thanksgiving, where you're like, let's get that exercise in, and then let's eat some food. So we did that. I felt good. Honestly, running races, don't do those as much anymore, which I would like to do some more half marathons, and that was me moving the coffee mug in case it sounded like a fart in the background. Just a tea and a coffee mug. But the race, I don't do it as much anymore, the race stuff. But I've been running more, and I should register for a half marathon probably coming up. But felt good doing the 4 miles. I started out pretty slow, and I was like, I'm gonna start out with a slower pace, and I'm gonna bring it in. And it's funny how your mind, I felt good the first 2 miles. I was going a little bit slower pace, picked it up a little bit more on the 3rd mile, and then the 4th mile. It's funny how your brain works, because I was saving the energy. And in my head, I know where I'm capable of just running, or not where, but time-wise, my capabilities based on how I'm running right now, how I've run in the past. You kind of have an understanding of maybe what you could do if you gave it your all. But you start running, you get those running endorphins going, it's race day, and your brain's just maybe I'll just run the fastest mile I've ever run on this fourth mile. I was really talking myself up big. I did go much quicker. I think I went like 6:40 on the last mile, which I felt good about. But it was kind of funny leading up to the last mile because I was like, I might be able to sprint the entire last mile. And that is not, you can't do that. That's not possible. That's why you just can't do that. So felt good to end strong. And I felt good afterwards. It felt like a good, nice run. And then went off, hung out with my friends, saw their new place. They're in a new house. And yeah, hung out there, ate some food, played some Phase 10. You guys know that card game? I don't know if I've ever played a full game of Phase 10. If you're not familiar, it's a card game where there's basically 10 rounds. And once you finish the 10 rounds, you add up the point, whatever, somebody wins. And I swear the last 3 or 4 times I've played, make it to round 3, and then it's just like, people go to bed. I had to leave. It started snowing, so I had to leave in round 2 or 3. So kind of funny. That's probably not the best sign of a good... Phase 10 should have like here's an alternate Phase 5. You can play that also if you want to finish the game in less than 2 hours. That's a crazy thing with board games. I enjoy board games. All right, I'm not a huge fan. Some people are like Settlers of Catan. You see people who are like, I'm into it. Let's spend our Sunday playing some board games. I'm not like that, but I'm down to play a board game every now and again, but they do feel like a commitment. It's like there's not many games where you're like, hey, this is 20 minutes. You play it, and then like you can keep playing it again if you want to start over and keep doing it. But it's less of a commitment. It feels like a lot of these, it's like, hey man, what board game do you want to play? What game do you want to be committed and stuck in for the next 2 to 3 hours? And I mean, nothing against board games. I feel like that a lot of times with, like, if there's 8 people hanging out at a house party, and it's like, hey guys, what movie should we watch? And you're like, oh, that's a commitment. I want it to hang or talk. Like if you throw in a background movie, that's fine. There's not many background games, board games, I guess I'm saying. Like if you could casually play a game where it's like you're able to converse, but also you're kind of playing, and that's kind of happening throughout the night. It's very much a commitment though. It's like, I wanted to yuck it up or talk, or maybe it's a game that you don't like. I don't know. I can tell I haven't eaten much today. It is about 3 p.m. I just finished a 5-mile run, and my brain, I can feel it is weak. I'm weak in the noggin. Egg noggin. And I do not feel like I'm speaking fluidly right now. I'm going to drink some black tea here. I'm still off coffee, but I am having black tea every once in a while. Something hot. It's cold outside. Went for a run. Snow on the ground. Which makes the run harder because you have to, it's like running, but also I'm like waiting for the ice to slip. So you're like running with more tension in your body, which expels more energy. Anyways, you get it. I hope you guys had a good Thanksgiving. Let me know. Oh, before I forget, here's something. I always tell you guys to comment. And I've seen some comments. Lauren, I've seen your comments. Thank you for commenting. Jake, saw your comment. Thank you for tuning in. I should respond. It was funny. Responding about, what was it about? UMF, I think, was the name of the Weird Al Yankovic movie that I was talking about in the last episode. And Ethan said, I think it's like Porky's. And Jake was like, it's nothing like Porky's. So good clarification there. What I meant to say, though, is the comments. I think if you comment on Spotify, it's literally just like a response. I I don't know what to call it. I can't respond to it. It just shows up like I can see it. But unless I'm an idiot, which that could certainly be the case, I don't think I can respond to it. So if you want to leave a comment and have a question and want me to respond and engage, throw that up on the YouTube video, or just shoot me a message via Instagram. We don't, it doesn't have to be a public comment. If you're just interested in something, shoot me a message on Instagram or, my telephone number, whatever the case is. Happy to chat there as well. I'm not doing this for all the stats, Although ultimately, long term, I would like there to be some stats. Be pretty cool in 5 years to, be like, wow, a lot of people came to my show this weekend because they listened to my podcast. That would be pretty dope. Speaking of dope, I did some pretty dope shows over the last couple of days. It's been busy, man. It's been busy. I keep saying that. That's the only thing I say on all these episodes. It's busy, which is great. And I've been hosting a lot. And I'll tell you this, I did 3 shows in the last 4 days, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. All fun shows, and hosted all the shows. I'm hosting, as I've said, a lot more around town, which is great. Really starting to feel like I'm hitting my stride as a host, as far as like comfort levels and managing and getting the show up and running, like setting a tone for the rest of the comics, and just feeling in the moment. It's very easy. We do, as a comic, doing it for close to 5 years, kind of anybody in my position or anybody doing comedy or anything for that matter for a long time, you get comfortable doing it. So like I'm comfortable on stage. And I got comfortable on stage, a while ago. Sometimes you feel less comfortable than others depending on the situation, but hosting is like a different thing to get comfortable with. And it's one of those things where because you kind of hold the responsibility of getting the show started. And also sometimes, you're like checking people in. So, it adds an extra element of maybe anxiety or stress, which then can translate to on stage. But doing that just over time, a lot of times, I'm starting to feel a lot more in the moment and comfortable. And that's great. Like in the past, when I was doing it, and this is probably relevant for a lot of, if you guys are comics listening, or if you're not, just some inside baseball. But if you, it's very easy to get comfortable hosting when it's a comfortable setup. And what I mean by that is it's a good show. The people are there to laugh. You go up there, you're like, hey, everybody, clap your hands. Let's get this thing going. And if they're like, yeah, we're ready to have a good time, and they start laughing at your jokes, it's like, yeah, that's very easy to be in the moment because people are on your side. But there's plenty of times where you go to start the show and they're not on your side, or they're just, they take a second to laugh, or it's a free show and they're not, it takes a second for them to adjust and understand what's going on. Then it can be easy to be like, oh, I don't feel comfortable here. I feel comfortable when they're on my side, but when they're totally not and I'm responsible for getting the show up, then I'm like, floundering a little bit, which certainly I've done plenty in the past. But I feel like, in the last year or so, definitely better. In the last 3 shows that I hosted, I felt just very comfortable in the moment, fluid is probably a better word. Actually, it's the best word. It's the correct word, is what I meant to say. Fluent. I was just speaking fluent Spanish up there, and that's a great host set. No, it was fluid transitions from comic to comic, because also that's another thing, too. Like, you can have a good host set, you give the rules, you do the jokes, you get the audience laughing and clapping, and then you bring up the next person, and then, you're going up after each comic saying the credits of somebody, like, hey, this person, you've seen them on, on TV, on this podcast, whatever. then you bring them up, and sometimes you can kind of, or I have certainly, and host in general, you can flub the intros up, and when you finish the show, it's probably not huge. I doubt the people in the audience are thinking too much about it, especially since it's just a short thing you're saying. It's not like you're up there for a long time when you're bringing the next person up. But sometimes I'll flub or stutter or misspeak, and it's not a fluid transition, and I'll go home going, I had a good host set at the beginning, but there was one or two people where I kind of like flubbed the intro, and it can bug you. But I think the more reps you get, the better you get in general, and I feel like that's kind of coming to fruition. So that was fun. That is fun. I'm saying it like it's past tense. I'll never host again. That was fun. My hosting days are over. I'm all over the map right now, guys. I genuinely, like I said, it's funny when you feel your brain have a lack of nutrition and like the things that it needs, and you're just like, my brain is dumber right now. Like I'm dumber than I should be, and I'm already kind of dumb. So it's pretty dumb level. This podcast might be a little stupid, a little silly. Maybe I can make it silly stupid. Save a little face. But that is an interesting thing, how you feel your brain just not functioning properly, which is interesting too in the context of college. But and I think this is probably relevant for a lot of people. But when you're younger, and college is a good example, where your lifestyle a lot of times is not healthy at all, whether it's the food, maybe eating fast food all the time, or just really bad food, the drinking, the alcohol, the lack of sleep or the poor sleep schedule. I mean, staying up all night and then trying to just pulling all-nighters, drinking sodas, trying to study, just a bunch of stuff where it's, I look back and I go, man, no wonder I struggled to sit still in class or focus or concentrate. It's like I was living such this chaotic schedule in life. And, yeah, my brain, I look back and I go, yeah, my brain was like, hello, I'm not going to work unless you treat me a little bit better. But, you live and you learn. And those are the days, college and younger, where you can get away with being a little chaotic and still function somewhat. Nowadays, man, if I lived in my college routine, I mean, that'd be a funny experiment. It's like how long before you get fired living your college routine? You're just like 2 weeks into no sleep, just drinking most nights. And your boss is like, Ben, we need to meet. Yeah. Those things you've been saying recently in the meetings, I didn't want to embarrass you in front of the other coworkers, but they made no sense. And the email you sent me earlier, I'm going to need you to tell me what you need from me, because that didn't make sense either. I used to, when I was younger in my career, spend so much time on emails. I was like very self-conscious, or just like worried, you want to write this professional email, and then sometimes you write something out and you're like, oh, does that come off the wrong way? I don't want it to be in a certain tone, this or that. And so sending emails, getting through emails could take like a long time. And it feels good to be where I'm at now, where you like deal with that for a certain amount of time, and then 10 plus years into your career, you're like, I have a checklist I need to get through, and take this email however you want to take it. I don't care. If by the way, I'm not sending emails that I don't think many emails I'm sending are like borderline rude at all anyways, but there's sometimes you need like somebody to do something for you, and where you're like, hey, can you help me out with this thing? And a lot of those situations, I'd be like, I don't want this to come across as like pushy or whatever. Now I'm like, hey, I need you to do this thing. Can you get it to me? Like, I can't send you 5 baby emails and stress out about it. It's like I've got 100 emails I got to send. Anyways, is that relevant for any of you guys? Do you guys send emails? Yeah, let's talk about some of the shows I did. Like I said, hosted 3 shows. By the way, I don't know if you guys can see in the background reflection of my glasses. That doesn't make nothing I'm saying makes sense. I don't know if you can see in the background reflection. What am I saying? I don't know if you can see the reflection of my glasses showing the YouTube video I have going on in the background, which is a fireplace on silent. Woo! Okay. Does that make sense? If you can't see it, then I don't know. That might be distracting, but it's cold outside and I want to look at a fire. Feels cozy. But let's go through the shows. Some fun shows. I had an interesting interaction. I'll call it an interaction. It wasn't so much of an altercation. Interaction is a better word for it. But on Wednesday, I hosted a show at a brewery, and it's like a free show. It's a monthly show they do there. It's a free show. There's a lot of people there. Day before Thanksgiving, a lot of people are out. And so I set up. I'm hosting the show. I give, multiple heads up warnings. So like 30 minutes before the show, I give, a little announcement. Hey, everybody, we're going to get the show started at 7 o'clock. Grab a beer, grab some food, run to the restroom. We'll get started a little after 7. And then right around 7, I gave like a 5 or 10 minute warning saying, hey, everybody, we're going to start the show here shortly. Just a heads up. And then when I get the show started, I introduce, what's going on, which most people there are aware that the comedy's happening because it's a monthly thing. But it is a free show, so some people are there that may not know. And that's totally fine. I get that. But I go through the spiel. I'm like, hey, everybody, it's a comedy show. Who here has been to a comedy show before? Kind of get a pulse on the crowd, like who's aware. Most people clap. They get it. It's like, we're going to tell some jokes. You guys can listen and laugh. And then I go through the rules. I go, hey, please don't heckle during the comedy show. Please keep your table talk to a minimum. And then go through like grab beer if you want to during the show, restrooms, blah, blah, blah. Let's have a good time. And I do my host set. I do about 10 minutes. And everybody is listening except for the table literally directly in front of me. And it's an interesting setup. It's like a V where the very center of the brewery is actually where they like make the beer itself. So you kind of have like a hall. I'm in the corner. Performers are in the corner. And then you have like a V off to the left, a V line off to the left, and a V line off to the right. That's where your crowd is. And then literally just where I'm at in the corner right in front of me is one table. And this table of 6, these older folks were talking so loud, just not listening to the comedy, just talking. And, I'd already told the rules, and in my head I'm thinking, it was very distracting actually, because I was telling my jokes, and also in my head I'm thinking like, how should I address this? Should I tell them to be quiet into the microphone? I've already mentioned I don't want to be mean, make it uncomfortable. What's the best way to approach this? So I decided, and I think I stand by this, I think this is the best way to do it for that scenario and pretty much all scenarios like this, at least for me, from my perspective. But I said, I'm going to bring the next comic up, and then I'll go up to the table and then ask them politely if they don't mind, minimizing the talking. So I bring the next comic up, and actually there's the comics are sitting at a table in the back, okay? And I asked the comics, I said, hey, there's a table talking very loudly in the front. I'm going to try to get them to stop talking or get them to move. Do you guys mind? I had the comics move to a different table to free up tables in the back, so I could give these older folks that were talking the option to have another table. So I walk up to them, and I mean, I said this in a very as polite as possible. There was literally no anger in my voice at all. I mean, I wasn't even angry. I just walked up to be like, hey, sorry to interrupt. If you guys don't mind not talking, because the comedy show, that would be greatly appreciated. And if you want to move, there's actually a table in the back if you'd rather just talk. Because some people, like I said, it's a free show. And they were there obviously to talk. They weren't paying attention. So I was like, if you guys want to talk, there's a table in the back that I freed up. Which in my mind, I'm like, there's no chance of confrontation here, because this is just, it's like you guys don't want to watch the comedy, obviously. So let's get you in a place where you can actually hear better too. You don't have the obnoxious, speakers in your ear. So I say that. I say, hey guys, do you mind if moving to the back if you want to keep talking? And this guy just goes, no. And I was like, what? He goes, no. And I was like thrown off. I'm not a confrontational person at all. And I wasn't expecting confrontation, but I just looked at him and I said, well, this is like a monthly comedy show. People are listening. You guys are talking real loud. If you want to keep talking, it'd just be easier back there. And he goes, no. And I said, well, I'm not asking, I'm telling. You need to move if you're going to keep talking. And then he goes, well, if you guys would be funny, maybe we would stop talking. And at that point, it's like, dude, I don't care. I have bombed 100 times, 1,000 times. I mean, I've bombed so many times. I've had people go, yeah, that's not funny, whatever, whatever. They'll heckle, they'll tell me, that's fine. I don't care. But if you're going to talk over, there's 60, 70 people trying to listen to the comedy, and your table of 6 is right in front, just talking super loud, because they're talking super loud too, because they're trying to talk over the speakers. So they're even a higher level. I'm like, if you want to talk, there's a table in the back. It works for both of us for this scenario. He just goes, no, if you'd be funny, maybe we talk. And I just kind of stared at him. I was just like, I'm just trying to be polite and make this situation better for both of us. I don't know why. And then some lady, fortunately, in the group, because it was like a tense, weird she goes, we can move. I don't know. The guy, he was like this old hippie dude with a ponytail. I don't know. I did not come in a manly, macho way, but I guess this guy felt threatened or something. I was like, no, I can't bow down to this guy. And it's like, dude, I'm just trying to like make this scenario better for both of us. But that was interesting. He just said no, and then the lady was like, okay, and I kind of walked away, and I was angry. So I'm not good with confrontation, like I said, but when people are unreasonable like that, and there's been plenty of times in my life, but where that's happened, and I'm sure probably similar for you all as well, but when somebody's that unreasonable, we're just like, hey, I've found a solution for both of us here. You guys are kind of like ruining the show, and I tried to establish before kind of the rules of it. You guys are kind of not abiding by that. If you don't mind moving to the back, that'd be great for both of us. And it's just like, no. It puts me, my mind, it's like tunnel vision, where it's just like, I don't know, it's weird. I like shut down. I remember my that happened with one of the first bosses I had. I've probably told this story before, but I'll make it brief. I worked at I won't say the place, but I worked at a place where I was in marketing, but also getting shifted and pulled into sales. And my boss, he would get a bunch of these leads, and he would get commission on all the sales. And he was getting overwhelmed. We were getting just more leads than he could handle, and he had more other responsibilities that he had to deal with. So he started offloading the leads to me and my colleague. But here's the deal. He would have us sell, and then he would take the commission. So obviously that's like morally wrong, ethically wrong. Like that's what a bad person does. So he was doing it to my colleague more. She had been there longer, and I said I would help out with some. So he was taking advantage of me, but I was like, when I go through the full sales process from start to finish and sell an entire unit 100% by myself, that'll be the day that I'll have the conversation with him to say like, hey, if you want me to do sales, then it's only fair to get commission for it. So that day came, and I sold. Which, by the way, when I'm talking about selling a unit, these are like $150,000 units. That we're talking about like a month, 2-month process of like going through the entire thing. So I did that, sold my first unit 100%. And then, I went into his office. And again, it wasn't like this contentious thing. I'm just going in to state the obvious, to say like, hey, if the expectation moving forward is for me to sell, and if you're going to be handing stuff off to me and I'm going to be doing the process, then I think, it's only fair for me to be compensated for doing that job. And the way he reacted was if I threatened his family. Like, I thought he was going to get up and physically fight me. It was like my mind, and this example is way more over the top than the ponytail dude who told me no. But it's one of those things where you go into a situation and you're like, I never even thought that someone being like, no, we're not going to move or whatever, somebody just being unreasonable was a potential outcome. So I'm like thrown off. But when my boss did that to me, I just shut down, because it's like, this person's obviously unreasonable. So there's no like, they're unreasonable. What am I going to try to argue with the person who's not logical? So I just, in that situation, I remember just shutting down and just sitting there, and he lectured me for like 30 minutes about how you never ask that, you don't ask that to me, like some whatever. And then like 30 minutes into it, he obviously realized that he like went way too hard in the paint, and he tried to like come back and bring it back on me, like what a dad would do, who like, I'm saying like a lot, similar to what a dad would do who overreacts, punishing a child, and then goes, you made me do this. Okay, I hope you understand you made me do this. That's exactly what he did. And I was like, I made you do what? I just didn't respond. I was like, I'm not going to give you the satisfaction of you thinking that I think that you're right. I just was stone cold. He's just like, do you understand? Do you understand? She's like, sure. And that's how I felt similar, where I felt flushed in the face. It's weird. I wish I had a little bit better temperament when it came to confrontation. Just keeping your thoughts and being in the moment, where like, if confrontation comes up, not that I'm like trying to fight people at all, but where you're just like, hey, somebody's getting contentious, and I'm still able to state my position and be like, well, you're being kind of irrational, and this is why, and just staying calm and stating things, rather than just being like, this person is being unbelievably confrontational and my brain is shutting down. But that was Wednesday. And by the way, that ponytail guy, they did move to the back. And I'm pretty sure one of the comics mentioned while I was in like the other room that he overheard them say like, it is better back here. It's like, yeah, back here is away from the show. If you guys are here to catch up and talk, it's not like there were TVs or something else around that they would be moved away from. It's like, literally, you're sitting directly in front of the comic, and you don't want to see the comedy show. You want to talk. And the fact that you're like, no, we will not move to a table that fits our situation better. So that was interesting. Then I hosted Thanksgiving, obviously, Thursday, Thanksgiving. It snowed Thanksgiving night, so I hung out at my friends. We had the Thanksgiving dinner, and then I left probably 7:30 or so. Started snowing, and wanted to get down back to Denver before it got too cold and icy and the roads got bad. Just because I got that 2-wheel drive Honda Fit. It's always sketchy driving in snow in general, especially when it was like 20 degrees and kind of, snow but freezing rain type situation. But Friday came around, did a show on Friday, hosted a Don't Tell show. Hosted a Don't Tell show Friday and Saturday night. And they were both at hotels. Both fun. It was interesting. The one on Friday, so it's like it was on the rooftop of a hotel. And it was neat. It was a cool spot. But one funny thing that happened was the elevator to get up there broke. And I'm not 100% sure, but it broke right around when the show started. And somebody I heard later, like halfway through the show, the event coordinator told me, yeah, somebody got stuck in there for like 30 minutes. The fire department had like come to get them out. And I was like, oh my gosh. I wonder if that was somebody who was like coming up to see the show. And then they just, 2 floors before they make it, they're just stuck in an elevator. But that's not funny. That's, it's kind of funny. But that's a bummer if they were coming for the show. But after the show, because that elevator was broken, I had to like redirect everybody to take a different route to get to a different elevator. So I was explaining that the show was like over, and I was just like, hey guys, before you get out of here, a couple things. Make sure you get out of here correctly and safely. And some guy yelled from the crowd, he's like, yeah, when we were coming up, something fell from the elevator. And I was like, well, the elevator usually works well, but not today. Use the other elevator. And so then, like, thank you guys so much. Have a good night. And then I start packing this stuff up, and that same guy, he comes up to me, and in like a much more serious tone, he's like, no, seriously, we were coming up on the elevator, and something fell from the roof. Which I don't even know what that means. It's like, what? Like, I don't know. I didn't ask him questions, but I was just like, oh no, that's... Like, I tried to be empathetic and be like, oh, wow, that's crazy. But I didn't realize until, like, after he left, it's like, oh, I guess he thinks that I work here. And it's like, no, I just came here to do the comedy show. I'm not the host and also the mechanic of this hotel. That would be hilarious. You think you just go into, like, every comedy show you go, the host or some of the comics on it, or they're just pulling them from like that business. You just go to a comedy club and they're like, hey, we're going to pull the manager out to be on the show. That's not a great example. Actually, a lot of people who work at a comedy club do comedy. But any other business, these Don't Tell shows are at just like random unique locations. So it could be at like a plant shop. It's like, what do you think? You think they're just like, yeah, this plant expert. I don't know. Who works at plant shops? Biologist? Plant agriculture. Man. My brain's not firing today, guys. I also feel like I'm struggling to enunciate words, probably because I'm dehydrated. I drank a little bit. I'm drinking tea now. But that was Friday. That was kind of interesting. And then yesterday did another Don't Tell as well. Was also fun. Was also at a hotel. Had a good time. Those were good. I've got no shows coming up this week, but pretty solid schedule for December. I'm going to be hosting at Looney's Comedy Club in Colorado Springs for the first time. I'm excited for that. I've got a couple more Don't Tells and doing a show in the mountains, doing a benefit show, I think the 5th, a Tuesday show. So looking forward to December. Should be fun. Uh, but yeah, I've been very busy, like I said, with work, with comedy. Also been reading a lot more. And I think I've been keeping you guys updated somewhat on that. I think I let you know in the last episode, or probably two ago. I don't know if we talked about books in the episode with Ethan, but I got a handful of Stephen King books, read The Body. I think I mentioned that. I'm currently reading, and I have halted reading a little bit, but Stephen King on Writing, which is his book about like his methods and suggestions and on how you should write. That's from the perspective of him as an author. So that's been a good book, but I guess I've read maybe 2/3 of it, and I've hopped over to another book. I'll finish it up, but it's like one of those informative books that, it's a little bit different than a fiction where it's harder to step away from a fiction because you can forget characters and things like that versus like a more instructional book where you don't have those characters that, you could forget. With that said, jumped over to Stephen King's, I think it's his most recent fiction called Holly. It's a nice 400 some page book. So, 8th grade plus level. Some people tell me that I'm a high school level reader. Some people say not. Some people say 7th or 8th grade. I'll take either. It's good enough for me, but it's been a pretty good book. It's kind of I'm about halfway through it. I won't tell you too much if you're trying to read it, other than it's a like murder mystery fiction. I guess that would be the category it's in. It's set in a time pulling from a lot of, real life stuff, aka 2020, 2021, 2022. So it has and talks about the pandemic and COVID. Honestly, the book has been good, but kind of annoying to like, we just were hit with so much COVID news, whatever, over the last couple of years. It's kind of like the redundancy of reading some of the stuff. You're like, okay, I'm reading this to escape, not to like rehash all the COVID trauma over the last couple of years. But I'm reading it, trying not to let that affect. It's just, it is part of history. It happened. So that is something that's been a little obnoxious in the book, but can't complain other than the other stuff. Stephen King, I do like. His writing has been, all the books I've read, 3 or 4, has been pretty consistently good. I was big on John Steinbeck, but I will say John Steinbeck, he's got some top-notch books. He's also got some bottom-notch books. And I've read all of those. But Stephen King, a little more consistent, I would say. It's been cool reading his own writing, create his book about writing, guys. I'll be done in a couple minutes. My brain is literally failing as we speak. But on writing, his book has been encouraging. I actually started writing I don't want to put it out there like I'm writing a novel, but I've started just like writing the beginnings of what could turn into a novel if I stick to it. And it's pretty cool because I never thought about writing. I always hated writing. Reading and writing I hated. It was always felt like homework. But it wasn't until more recently, it wasn't until after doing comedy that I looked at writing in a different light. And I'm no longer looking at writing, because like writing jokes, it's like, whoa, dude, I'm creating something out of nothing to make people laugh. That's awesome. But I'm like sitting down and writing. But in my brain, it was kind of like, well, those are jokes, though. It's different. But it's like, you're still trying to like represent a situation and maybe story and explain that to people in a way that they enjoy, very similar to writing a book. And it wasn't until the last couple of years, especially with other comics that you see that write books and being like, oh, writing a novel or books or whatever form of writing is like the same. You're creating something out of nothing. That you just use your imagination to create this art. Which is really, I mean, it sounds obvious and simple and it's like, duh. But like I said, I always looked at writing as a chore, as homework, as something that was like mandated and you have to do this. And it's like, ugh. And also just on like topics probably that I didn't care about anyways. But it's pretty cool to look at it differently, where it's like, hey, this is just creating a story out of nothing. I can just use my imagination. So I've been writing a little bit on just this fiction that I'm working on lightly, and it's cool to kind of just write. And I'm not a good writer. I've never been a good writer, but it's also encouraging to write some stuff out and then read it, and it's like, it's like I can write a book. And that sounds maybe pretentious and arrogant, but I'm just saying that in the sense of anybody can write a book. It's just like, you just detail something out. My vocabulary is not incredible. There's my grammar. I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff where it's like, maybe it's not going to be interesting, but at the end of the day, anybody can just start describing situations and use their imagination to make a story and then try to tie it all together, build the characters up, kind of all the basic stuff that you have to do to have a book make sense. And so it's kind of, I don't know. It's very cool to have that real. It's funny that that's a realization. I'm in my mid 30s. It's like, oh, I could write a book. But it's cool to have that realization and something that I'll maybe try to chip away at moving forward. No guarantees on anything, obviously, with a busy schedule with comedy, with work, with a bunch of other stuff. It can be tough to juggle, but definitely something that's on my radar. So that's been cool to kind of get some motivation from some of these creative writing books, and then just reading more to give my brain a little bit more of an idea of just how books, the more you read, the more you learn from authors who are actually authors and know what they're doing. So with that said, I'm going to end it there. Thank you guys so much for listening. Sorry, I know that was a tough one probably to get through with my brain being a little slow this episode. But if you guys made it all this way, thanks so much for sticking around, and I'll see you guys again in the next episode.